I was like, I met you somewhere.
Hey,
I know I did.
one.
So it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Camera looks like a
So are we broadcasting this live?
Yes.
I love you.
No, it wasn't me.
I love them, all them. I love everybody. I love that we have the shotgun mics in here. That makes me so happy.
Awesome.
That's such a brilliant thing to do too. Because literally, so MXCW I've demoed about 10 times now, and literally the one thing is like, yeah, we just gotta figure out how to place it so that the mic can come all up. I'm like, what?
Well, my number one complaint that I've ever heard about conferencing systems is that they put them on the end of the table, and then these people on the board sit back.
You're fighting the game before feedback all freaking day long, but now, not so much anymore.
Yeah.
So
it's nice to have a lower profile thing,
and I can't wait to. Michael. Oh, never mind. He's actually doing something. My bad. Sorry.
I know it's odd.
We got audio, but we don't have video.
I know. I had pulled the power of the camera. It did a freeze frame again.
Oh, there it is. He'll be back.
But is it?
Anyways, I don't have the C55, so
No, Daniel's supposed to get him
by Friday.
Yeah, he's calling me today about it.
I'm probably gonna load this trophy up on Friday.
No, you're here. You didn't have to be good.
It's about 7 seconds delay.
Okay, cool.
I was like, I'm not seeing it. And then it's like, oh, there it is.
Come on, mainline fellas, man.
Get ready for trouble.
Here we go.
Yeah. You can take him out of the swamp, but
that's fine. Can you though?
No, I really can't. Just gotta feed him gators. That's all.
Listen, I just want to go to the swamp and get on their airboats. That's all I want. That sounds like
I'm doing that next time. Sorry, it's really loud.
Deuce. Doesn't his brother have like a airboat rental company back there? He was telling me something about it one time. But then again, that was when we were at that hideaway place. I don't know what was real.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about
those two guys from that production company that Chris was hitting me up about the box.
Yeah.
They're going to be here tomorrow. Come 3-4 hours up here, so good. I'm pretty excited about it. Mainly because it means that they really are serious about buying 150, 200 of these things.
So they should be.
Really couldn't believe it. I walk in, and so I have, you got my Pelican. They're like, all right, go ahead and get set up, and then we'll be in there. We got a few things to wrap up. I'm like, nope. I was like, because that's the demo. I was like, nope. I was like, just y'all get your stuff done, and come in here and somebody bring stuff home. They're like, okay, because I was like, less than 5 minutes. Yeah, let's do this. We get in there, throw it all up, and they're like, can it be voice activation? And I was like, not currently. Yeah. I was like, but I don't know what's on the roadmap, and that's why I hit Chris and he hit you.
It's down the road. Ben Cook, our Canadian associate, a lot of those guys out there do conferencing.
Yep.
So he would rip the same thing, rip open the case, talk about it, shing, shing, drop batteries in, power it up, and everything works. And he goes, people were trying to ask questions like, okay, so what else do we do? Like trying to make the whole thing harder.
No, it's got to be
this
more.
Is like, this is like it. And they're like, no, it can't be it. Like there's something else here that like you did before you got here. Like, no, that was literally it.
Yep.
Like pulled it out of the box.
If you don't believe me, let's put it all back and then you do it.
Yeah. He said it was funny because it ends and people are like, I don't think so. But wait a minute, you didn't take enough time to show me a demo. Like,
right.
I've still got 10 minutes. What do I do? What do I do?
One of them made a joke. He goes, so the sad news is we're not going to have to pay you anymore because I can hire a 20-year-old and throw him in a van with this stuff and we're good to go.
I'm good.
So I was like, that's a good joke.
Good to see you. Safe trip.
Uneventful. That's
Good.
but going from Orlando to Atlanta is almost like a bus schedule. It's like if you miss one flight, the next one's coming like 20 minutes later. So
that's good. Have you recovered from last week?
Yes and no. I mean, the great thing about it I had to like get up the next morning and like run to Tampa to go visit AVI to do like meet with their inside sales group. I'm like, that's really throwing it. I'm like, I might move that plant into that pot, and that's it. That's my weekend. So now it's just, unfortunately, we just have so much going on as follow-up, and it's like, that's going to take me weeks to dig through. So, but that's perfect.
That's great. It was a great event.
Yeah.
It really went well.
Well, good. I'm glad you guys really liked it. As a matter of fact, I actually have a demo with this for a county school system, like tomorrow morning.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I'll fly back tonight. I'll be like, oh, great. It'll be fresh in the brain, so I'll just basically get in there. I've done a couple demos with it already. Like I did demos for like Hillsborough County and Pinellas County, like before we even got our official demo kit. I had to borrow Michael's. So now it's just like those people are like trying to drag me along everywhere else. So like tomorrow, I'll get home tonight. Immediately take that thing down to Fort Myers tomorrow and demo it for them.
That's great. That's awesome.
So looking forward to it. All right.
I'm Chris, by the way.
Hey, Chris, Michael Cooley. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Thanks for having us.
Keep coming.
Full day, huh?
Yes.
All right. My eyesight sucks. I'm moving up front.
Yeah, it's better up front anyway.
Is it?
Yeah.
And we'll also go through the whole thing, so it's not just wireless, it's the...
We're going to talk about 5900,
Yeah.
CW, and then really focus on MXC.
Yeah, MXC is where I still need to brush up on getting into like the software features, things like that, configuration and all that. That's, MXCW is just kind of like, there it is. Everybody I've done it for so far loves the interface.
Oh yeah, it's guest client, all lowercase.
When, we were doing listen and stuff like that. And it was a great system, but it was, at the end of the day, it was like, the user interface was still kind of like, eh.
Clunky.
Yeah, this is just like, people get it, they see it, they're like, oh, look, I got the actual ears and this and the other.
It's so intuitive, like, especially the audio setting, I think, like, it looks like a finger, like, it looks like something.
Exactly.
A lot of the audio people are familiar with, and the IT people can kind of get around it too. It's just intuitive.
Every end user so far has been like, oh, this is easy. And I'm like, hey, can I see this on the network from anyone? I'm like, yeah, there's no software installed. Basically, it's a web GUI. You basically log into your access point, you're good. Like, perfect. All right, well, good to see you again. I'm gonna go claim a seat for my
Stake your claim.
Exactly.
Hi. Good, how are you? Nice to see you again.
Worked on something
I'm back. I claim my spot. My eyes.
Your eyes?
Yeah, because right now we kind of do a little scenario.
I had my old man try Like my wife, I have a lot of she's got my freedom. So I'm basically standing at CVS, kind of just wearing reading glasses. I'm like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm like, get behind a pair. So now I'm just walking around the house like reading glasses.
Yeah.
Doing the whole look straight down, look up, look down.
Find out what they are, let me know. Doctor say, you're ready for a prescription of blindfolds? I'm like, nah, man. No. My glasses are just messed up. I can see just fine when I take them off. My problem.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Stuart. We've had time for a time. You get a case folded, you put it in a little video player with the labels and stuff. Right. Yep. You doing all right today? Yeah, not too bad. I think we got guys there this weekend. It's all going to be in here today. So the whole all city council meetings, just give you guys Hey man, thanks for coming by. How you doing, man? Good. My name's Josh, and I guess. All right, nice to meet you, man. We talked on the phone about the MXC. Oh, like revisions. No, that was the other warehouse. Down at the end, we have all kinds of signs. Just something we're attached to that building. Oh, well, yeah, right. We got some. Yeah, you'll probably drive past outside if you get right in your face. Instead of everything, we're kind of known for our courthouse. We've got a few big projects. I think that out of it, yeah, make a big difference on the outside. Whatever you need. Everyone kind of yeah, we all have distribute audio, we do video as well as like it's full AD, but yeah, for bigger ones, you know, massive systems, so they've had auditoriums or space. Yeah, so that's a big audience. Yeah, sure. Is that especially it's a little bit southeast as well. Yeah, sure. Get out of town. We try and keep it. I used to do this all the time. Right. Once you have everyone, I have like experience there. So a lot of places have spaces, especially regularly. So they're used to it. So yeah, you can do away, especially the bigger ones. Yes. So the nice thing with this is like actually this is the shortest trip. So if we oh, I'm just being I'm trying to stay on site like overnight and all that. So a lot of the bigger projects do some ones that are smaller projects that might be like 1 or 2 day installs. Yeah. So we go like I mean, like you said, like you open the ground up. Yeah, awesome. I was figuring going after all the new fancy like technology. Yeah, they really wanted us to know this. The newest stuff. It's crazy because I mean you see some like concert videos and stuff like that. Like churches have better technology. You know, like it's pretty crazy. Yeah. There's a place. I guess it's probably been there early. Well, a year or two ago, my house just lost. Oh, that's right. We did walk through there. Like you're saying, it sounds like Matt would have probably. I think so. I believe so. Yeah, they would drive around. Yeah, drive around. It's like MXC. Okay, let me show you. That would explain why. Yeah, exactly. You've got a lot more stuff. Well, being, you know, an audio visual, but personally, we have one room set up as if being audio video art and whatever they have here is amazing. Yeah, I know this was oh, I know too. The floors, it's just a lot of old. Right, the old building. They're like, no, your whole building and stuff like so like a lot of times they need integration with those specifics that change. So I mean, it's a really big challenge. Yeah. So it all every church. Yes, but so like basically like we do weekly like on occasion. So that's the things a lot of it's ancient stuff. So it's like you know history, and they're like you can't touch a little bit more. Yeah. So I was so interested in how it all evolved. Yeah. Stuff out. Yeah.
Nobody sits down, we're never going to change.
I know.
Really not bad. Compared to a lot of but yeah, you have some projects. I mean, it feels like a little bit of a bumphouse about it. It's not.
In our building, where they floated the floor, and they're
yeah. We used to use far and away so we don't do these records we don't like to tie it so heavily to the carpet because they kind of at that point it gives these like pieces that taper. Yeah, so we end up getting that, but we recommend it.
I'm doing well.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it's just like a funny email.
I like with the undercarpet, it's rarely when you notice it. Yeah, at that point you're like,
What you want?
The guy behind you.
What's his name?
It's fine. He's coming in.
Oh no, I'm gonna come pass it.
before you because you got to run down. You know, somebody that terminates that. So it's a little more complicated.
It's for all that stuff.
Yeah, it's not a simple sometimes they're not. Yeah, it's clean. Even the transition.
All the mics around.
We actually have we have a sample kit so you can see like
They had yeah, no, what was I trying to get? Really wanted that.
I was there too, but there was like, we had a lot of like 40 people. So, I mean, one of my buddies,
Mary didn't know what was going on, and I had already last year.
oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, yeah.
It was in Orlando. Year before in Orlando.
In Orlando, yeah. You going this year? Yourself too, but see, it's or is there somebody in your area as well that will be? Yeah, I just meant like as far as like. I didn't know if there was like a UNC.
No.
Okay. Okay. That's what I have. Yeah, sure. Okay. But you are essentially. Oh yeah.
When they say, hey, it's needed, right?
They have good season.
Yeah, I would definitely, that sounds like a conversation. Because I know that. Yeah, we just moved in last week. Check that. They actually. Higher level inflation. Still personal, like touch. Just because those accounts are so big. I still kind of the guy in the driver's seat, Joe's in the territory where they're there, but still assisting him with it because the last sale he asked. If it's not, they're like, oh no, like
Oh yeah, yeah. So, and I think that's it. Like having that blank conversation, I think, with Kevin. Yeah. Yeah. Are we? I mean, what's it in charge?
Thank you.
The wireless stuff, which is really don't want the speakers in the mixer. That's the play. Unless you're doing board of regents, where you do voting and agenda stuff, that's okay, but this. But do they do voting? Do they do agenda management already? Okay, so next, this system.
Yeah, which is the.
Okay. So yeah, so this seems to
It'll give you a link. It is a private link, but anyone with the link can watch it. You can't search it.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, if it's a link that we can send out to some people that can make it.
Hi, how are you? Chris. Vanessa, very nice to meet you, Chris. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
Oh, look.
Awesome. Thank you. Somebody put a bag in my seat. What's up with that? I guess this won't be mine. How you doing? Good.
Oh, it feels nice in here now. It was really hot this morning. I can deal with this. Yeah.
You hear me?
But the light does work.
We ready?
Yeah. Let's get started.
Well, guys, sitting right at the back here, huh? I can't remember. Have we met Robert Matthews?
Richard Morgan.
Hello, Richard. Nice to meet you.
He's the guy at the CDC who makes the real decisions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So,
It had nothing to do with Constitution.
okay. So you know CJ and
Yeah.
Jeff and
Yeah.
How's Mr. Sawyer doing? Cause is he better now? Oh, brilliant! Oh, I'm really glad to hear that.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and kick this thing off. We want to thank
let me give you a
everyone for
card.
taking the time to come out and learn about our new products here at Shore. We have 3 great folks from Shore.
Do you have one as well?
We have 3 great folks from Shore who are going to be here to educate us on these products over the next 5-6 hours today. We're going to keep it, we're going to have some portions of it where it's going to be serious. We're going to have questions and stuff like that. We're going to have some light-hearted portions, maybe like a little mock city council walkthrough, something like that. But anyhow, if you have any questions, raise your hands. We got refreshments over here off to the side. Water's in the refrigerator in the break room, and then right through this door, or you can go around, is the restroom if you need to use it. So, without anything further, Michael Moore. Put your hands together.
Look at that. That was great.
Mike Dalton, this is a request to talk.
We'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedule. Appreciate HWPCO. We know that we may not have gotten the announcement out as quick as we wanted to, but appreciate your time to come and hopefully learn. Specified, and we do have 2 channels of language interpretation. These are the basic core components, which is the CCU, which should look familiar and will be very familiar throughout the day, the portable unit, and the flush mount unit. Basic CCU, which if you remember back in the day was a 5905 for folks that specified or used this, was a 4 output with 2 input. We updated, streamlined the SKUs, and went to the same CCU that you'll use for MXC that we'll talk about later today. So this CCU, which is DIS-CCU out of the box, is default a 5900 system. Outboard power supply. A lot of people are, why do you do that? Well, we've got other tools in the line that allow you to provide redundant power supplies. So we've got some other accessories that we'll talk about in a few. and of course 2 inputs as well. So we do have analog input and output from this system. We can, as you can see today, we've got a wireless microphone attached into our CCU and provided audio into your local loudspeaker. With a simple to configure browser-based interface, this UI will give you all of the chairman controls and other basic configurations that you might need to control mics on and off, review a speaker list, or in manual mode be able to request folks to speak. The DC5980P for portable. Again, it's a very simplistic interface. You have a 1-button touch to speak or to request to speak. You also have a second configurable button, which could be a mute, or in a chairman mode, it may be a delegate off. The 3.5mm jack is for interpretation. However, you can also feed the floor audio, the program audio back into it. So if you do need listening assist, you have that built into this device. And of course, integrated loudspeaker. And again, DCS LAN connectors, so I can link through the devices to form a chain. These are your basic stickers that you can put on the front of the unit. Chairman, that gives you the delegate off. And by the way, the volume up down is for the 3.5mm. In 5900, you do not have volume control. It's a global volume control of the loudspeaker. So that is simply for your assisted listening or your return interpretation channel. And you'll see the 1 and 2 on the left, excuse me, on the right of the sticker. Those are for your interpretations. Do you want 1 or 2, English to Spanish, Spanish to English? This is the flush mount version. So we've taken the guts out of the portable unit, and all of the guts have been put into this one device, which is the DC5900F. This allows you that if you just need a podium mic without a speaker, because you're going to route that audio, say, to a large house system where you don't need that local speaker, it gives you a really low-profile install. Or you can see in the picture to the right where there's a little 2-pin Molex connector, and you can add the speaker into the system so you can do a permanent flush mount. This is the faceplate for the 5900F. This is the simple 2-button just for speech, and just like on the other plate, you can have a simple button that allows you to request a speaker speak and a mute button to the side. Or if you do need the interpretation or assisted listening, you go to the 5981F, and that will have the 3.5mm jack on the side. There's the sticker layouts. So you select which faceplate you would like, and then you buy these as an accessory item as to what your preference is. And that is a chairman down there. And that is a chairman 2-button as well. So you can actually have a really basic chairman system in a 2-button configuration. Microphones. This has been in the past when we purchased DIS, there were other manufacturers manufacturing microphones for us at the time for DIS line, which is the old GM series that you might be familiar with if you have designed or used the system. We've added for the flush mount, if you're doing, just to make a note, if you're doing 5900 portable, it is the GM series microphone that works with the portable only. The 5900F flush mount allows you these opportunities, that you can have the MX series and our new shotgun series as well in the line. You do need a little adapter for the MX to convert it. This will be beaten into your heads today. Is there any other way to say that? Not really. Sorry. So this is not a network cable. This is a DCS LAN cable. Remember that even though it is an RJ45 that's shielded, and that is a female RJ45 on each one of these delegate units, we are not passing TCP/IP information. We are passing DCS LAN protocol, which means the cable has a different specification than a standard network cable. So we do ask that if you are specifying any system that has DCS LAN in it, which is 5900 or MXC, that we use this cable. This is the same cable that we've produced and tested individually since the 6,000 days in the original DIS days. Just a quick shot of accessories. So if we do need to create a larger chain system or a star topology, we have all of these devices to scale the system up, which include junction boxes, power inserters, DCS signal LAN repeaters. And then if we do need to do redundancy, we're in a situation where we need to have dual CCUs for backup, we need to have dual power supplies for backup, or we need additional audio outputs for additional interpretation with different feeds, say to a press box area. These are also other items to create redundancy within the system. If we are doing interpretation or assisted listening, things that I think we kind of forget about from time to time, you know, you've got your standard over-the-head earphones, but for folks that might need other devices because of interpretation, where you still need to hear floor audio, you still need to hear interpretation, you know, a single over the ear, or for folks that may have certain headdresses, or grandma got her hair done at the beauty shop and she needs a stethoscope, don't want to mess the do up, we've got other options as well. Quick system diagram. Our central unit connected out DCS LAN to our chairman, our delegates, everything is in a single chain. And then we have another chain down here where we've turned the same portable unit into an interpreter station. That audio then flows back to the central unit. And then up here, we also have, that we won't be talking about today, but we do have an IR radiator system with the digital receivers. So if you do need to have wireless interpretation or wireless assisted listening, I know there's other companies that do that. The difference here is that we've got 3 outputs from our central unit going to our digital transmitter. One could be an English feed, one could be a Spanish feed, and one could be a floor feed. So again, for folks that need assisted listening, you can just simply use the floor feed, which would be all of the open mics in the room. And then folks that need the translation channels, you can simply select those as well.
On your IR reader, what's the range on that?
I would have to double check. I know that we've got it up in Canada in one of their, it's not a full parliamentary room, but it seats about 300 folks that they use it in. It's, the auditorium's probably about 80 foot deep, probably about 60 foot wide. And one reason why folks like IR, just FYI, is because of security. Once the door's shut in the back of the room, I can't transmit RF outside of the room. And with that, we're going to kick it over to Vanessa, who will give us a quick tour of MXCW. By the way, it is open format today, so if there are any questions, feel free to interrupt at any time. If there's something that may speak to you about possibilities of implementation, just let us know.
I guess I'll talk for this system. So how is everyone today? Everyone's well this morning? Awesome. So how many people are familiar with MXCW? Most people?
All the reps raise their hands, right?
Yeah. So this will be a review for most of you that are familiar with the system, but we're going to dive in. And as Michael said, if you have questions, just raise your hand or shout it out. You can use your microphone as well. And we'll go through this pretty quickly. So MXCW essentially is an integrated wireless system designed for conferences and meetings. The system is designed for quick, easy, portable use. So it's going to very easily power up, and it will work right out of the box. Means it's great for a lot of applications such as rental, portable use, where you may have a county commission or a government entity that has different meetings going on, and maybe it's a multi-purpose room. So maybe they're pulling the gear down at the end of the day, setting it back up at the beginning of the morning. So essentially what we're looking to do with the system is really enhance our intelligibility through the microphones and the loudspeakers that you have with the system, and that's going to enhance basically your meeting productivity and allow you to really focus on what you need to communicate in the meeting. So the main features and benefits of MXCW. In terms of the security of the system, we do have AES 128 encryption built into the system. So any customer or any end user or anyone that's concerned about the security of their communication or that signal being listened to or tapped into can be reassured by that AES 128-bit encryption. Furthermore, the login for the browser, the web-hosted GUI, can be secured. So you can set up a password and actually limit that so that people cannot log in accidentally or not accidentally and make some system setting changes that are undesirable. You can also lock out the front panel of the access point itself so that once everything is configured, nobody can go in and touch the button by accident and change something. So that's another great security feature as well. Simple setup, we'll go through this in a little bit, but essentially you power the system on and the stations will automatically associate with the access point and the microphones will work. So there's no configuration, there's no initialization. It's the simplest of simple systems. You power it on and you talk, you go, and then you can focus on your meeting. Really limits setup time, configuration. It's a beautiful thing. The stations themselves are reconfigurable into any number of participant roles, so you don't have 5 SKUs or 4 SKUs that you have to kind of keep on hand. These stations can be configured as either a delegate role, a chairman role, an ambient microphone, or a listener role. And that's something that can be very quickly and easily changed on the fly. So if another chairman walks into a meeting, you can very easily change that role for that person right during that meeting.
You do it at the station, or is there like a central control point?
So it's a great question. You can do it through the GUI that's on the unit itself, but there's also a secret technician menu on the system that allows you to change the role pretty quickly. I can show that later as well. So the system is highly scalable. It will provide for up to 125 participants. So that's a pretty big meeting. Probably would go a long time, but anyway, so you can really scale that all the way up to 125 participants per access point. The RF is what I think is probably one of the best features of the system other than the quick and easy setup. All of the RF is being coordinated automatically for you. There's no need to do any scans, any type of coordination, reserve a frequency, reserve a backup frequency. The beauty of the system is it does it automatically for you. So you can focus on your meeting, you can focus on being productive and pushing through your agenda. The batteries themselves that come with the stations will last for up to 11 hours. So that's a pretty long meeting. Hopefully your meeting doesn't go quite that long, but it does allow for some setup time ahead of time so the batteries can be on air a little extra longer. And we'll talk about battery charging capabilities in a little bit. In terms of interfacing with other AV equipment, there is an analog connection on the access point itself that allows you to bring in analog sources and take analog sources out via XLR3. You also have Dante channels on the unit, so you have 10 Dante channels in and 10 Dante channels out. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of capability in terms of interfacing with other AV equipment. So that's a really great feature for the system as well. Really makes it robust. So the system portfolio is pretty simple and streamlined. So you have your access point transceiver, which again is coordinating 125 stations for you. You have your MXC W640, which is your participant station. And again, that can be configured to be a delegate, to be a chair, etc. So there's one station that can be many things within your conference environment. You have your gooseneck microphones, as well as your network charging station to recharge the batteries. So let's take a dive in and look a little bit further at the access point itself. So as I mentioned, 125 stations per access point, which is really great, really scalable system. The frequency detection and interference is done automatically. So the system is going to operate in the DFS channels within the 5 gigahertz range, and it will also operate in the non-DFS channels in 5 gigahertz and then 2.4 gigahertz as well. And we'll look a little bit at this further, and we'll talk about DFS and what that means for the system and how it operates.
Is it possible to turn off the band?
It is, yes. And I can show that to you once I open the GUI. Great question, thank you. So you do have the encryption built into the station. We talked about that, your analog ins and outs, as well as your Dante ins and outs on the system. There is an LCD that's on the front panel of the access point itself, and you have some menu buttons available, so you can do some really basic configuration right on the front panel of the access point itself. And you can actually log in and find the IP address if you want to log into the GUI. The GUI itself gives you more flexibility and more advanced configuration of the system, and we'll take a look at that later so that you understand exactly what is available to you there. And then another great point is the single cable for power, audio, and then control via Cat5. So it is requiring PoE power, so essentially your system is the access point to a switch, and then your stations, and maybe your computer to configure if you'd like to. So the 640 itself, again, I talked about this a lot, but I think it's important to keep in mind that it is one station that does everything for your meeting, so you can configure the roles very easily. The display has a touchscreen capability on it, so you can actually go in and you can configure the screen for dark mode. You can control other microphones if you are assigned a chair role, and then you can also see meeting information. What's the name of the meeting? What is my name? Maybe you're forgetting your name. Maybe you're having a bad day. So the stations do offer a built-in loudspeaker, which will provide the program audio through that particular loudspeaker. So you have a microphone and loudspeaker all in one. So this is really a great thing if you're thinking about an application that might require some voice lift, calculating PAGNAG and all of that. Sometimes this system, especially if it's historic or maybe some limited infrastructure in terms of being able to get in there and install things, this is a really great solution for that application because there are no wires, essentially. You have PoE to the access point, and that's it. You can pull your stations at the end of the day and be done. There is an NFC card slot built into the stations, so you can actually program participant information, and as your participants walk into the meeting, they can log into the system automatically, and then their name will populate into the system, and they'll know Vanessa's here, and she has the access to speak, at any given time. There's micro USB on the back of the stations as well, and this is used for if your battery is running low in a meeting, or if you don't have the network charging station, you can charge the microphone while it's in use with the micro USB on the rear of the station. You also have a TRRS 3.5 millimeter on the back, and that's going to be used for our remote participant feature, which is coming later, but essentially that would allow someone to remotely log into the system. Essentially, you'd have a cell phone connected into a station, and that person would be joining the meeting remotely. Maybe their kids got sick, maybe their car broke. They can still join the meeting, which is a great thing. And again, that's pending, that's still coming. Additionally, on each side of the station, you have a 3.5 millimeter audio jack and volume controls. As Michael mentioned, similarly with this system, those volume controls are only for the headphone connections. So anybody that needs assistive listening, is hard of hearing, can use that station and adjust their own volume independently. Or if you're providing interpretation through the system, once you have a headphone connected and there's interpretation routed correctly, you will be given the access to actually log in and pick a different language to listen to through the headphone. Any questions on this station at all? Pretty straightforward.
Will the station operate from micro USB without a battery?
It will not. It does require the battery. Thank you. All right, so let's talk a little bit about batteries. There is a network charging station, so if typical use, you would take the battery out of the station and drop it into the 10-bay charger to recharge the battery packs. You do have some charge status LEDs on the front of the station itself, so you'll actually see, what status is my battery at currently. There's an integrated power supply built into it, so there's no need for any external power supplies. It's all built in, standard IEC cable to run that. There's fans also built into this, so it will control the temperature for you. And then there is the ability via the Cat5 connection to the network connection to remotely monitor the battery status and health through the charger. So you can actually log in and you can see how many times has this battery been charged, what's the temperature of the battery, and you can also enable a storage mode, which gives you the ability to store the batteries for a longer time and maintain their health over that time period. There's a storage mode button on the back of the charger as well if you don't have access to the GUI. It can be placed on a table, can be racked on a wall, it could be racked in a rack, but essentially there's a lot of places you can set this unit for easy charging. If the battery is fully flat, there's nothing left, it's going to take about 4 hours to charge. And if it's at half level, it's going to be about 1.5 hours to charge that. So charges pretty quickly for an 11-hour runtime, which is pretty good. So the battery itself is a 3-cell lithium-ion battery pack. You do have an integrated LED with battery status right on the pack. There's a couple batteries in front of you guys. You can pull that out and press the button and you can see the status of your batteries. Hopefully everything is fully charged. We tried to charge everything last evening. But basically that's the battery pack that we're using for the stations. It does ship with the microphone station, so you don't have to order the battery pack separately. But if you'd like to order spares, you can of course do that. And you do have the ability to see hours and minutes in terms of the remaining lifetime of the battery per that charge through the GUI as well as through the station itself.
Is there a finite number of charges?
You know, I don't know where it starts to degrade. I don't know if I know that spec, but we can get that for you. In terms of gooseneck options, previously we had, 2 lengths available. So we had a 16-inch and a 20-inch with both a single and a dual flex capacity. And the station itself, or the gooseneck itself, is going to ship with a cardioid capsule. And this is a microflex capsule. As Michael mentioned, these are our microphone capsules, really providing the best intelligibility we can through the system and ensuring that by providing that with the system now. But essentially you can remove the gooseneck, the capsule from the gooseneck and use another capsule pattern if you'd like to. So you could use a super cardioid. But we've also just recently introduced, and you have in front of you on some of the stations, the mini shotgun. So you have a really short gooseneck here. It's a 406, so it's a 6-inch gooseneck, and then you have your mini shotgun. So that's great for people that, want to sit back. It really gets the microphone out of the shot or out of the face of the person that's speaking and allows, really great, clear, intelligible pickup through the system. There's a bicolored LED on the goosenecks themselves. Right now, mine is set to red when it's active, but you can also set that to be green. There's a locking 10-pin connector available, so you can lock these down and prevent anybody from yanking them out of the station themselves. And then there's also some GSM or RF immunity built into them. They are CommShield technology guaranteed. So let's talk about a few applications. I'm sure that you guys have a few that you've run into or maybe you have in mind. We talked about a little bit about the historic venue or a space that doesn't have a lot of infrastructure. Maybe it's a hotel ballroom, or maybe it's a county government that has a really historic space. The benefit of really using this system in that venue would be, again, you have a single network connection for power, audio, and Dante control. as well as the ability to essentially provide sound reinforcement and a microphone in one station without any wires. It's a beautiful thing. Flexible spaces or mobile meetings, again, you can configure the roles to be delegate or chair, and you can define those as you need to for any meeting type. And you can provide for up to 125 stations. In terms of the frequency coordination, there is none in this environment or any of these environments. Of course, the system is going to handle that automatically, so you don't have to worry about that, or the individual that's setting this system up doesn't have to worry about it at all. The ability to interface with existing analog or digital equipment is another great feature for this system in those applications. And then I'll kind of jump back up to the top. If it's a structured type meeting environment, you do have the ability to have a chairman or chairwoman, which has the ability to control different microphones and gives them unlimited access to the floor, as well as the ability to utilize an NFC card for quick identification and login of meeting participants. Any questions on the applications or anything else anyone has run into in terms of where the system is a great fit that we haven't talked about up here?
Are you going to talk later about the capabilities of the NFC cards?
Yes.
Yes. All right, so quick system at a glance. I think we talked a little bit about this earlier, but it's really simple, streamlined system configuration. So you have your PoE switch, which is connected to your access point transceiver. And in this case, we also have a laptop connected for the ability to make some advanced configuration settings through the web-hosted GUI. We also have, maybe in this case, an analog input. So we have a presenter, which might be roaming the room and is not going to be able to sit in front of a station. So we could bring that audio in through that XLR3 analog input. And maybe we have some sound reinforcement going out to a separate room or a separate area, or there's a specific area of the room that needs a little bit more reinforcement than we can provide with the stations. And that can be done with that analog output connection that's directly on the access point itself. And then, of course, wirelessly, we have up to 125 participant stations, which are connected to the access point transceiver.
It's just a generic switch?
A PoE switch. We do, we do.
But PoE. Is it a sure switch? Or
it is not, no. We do have some recommendations in terms of switches, but we can get that information to you as well. Remote participant, I think I chatted through this earlier, but essentially you have the TRRS connection on the back of the stations, which would allow you to log in a participant remotely so that they can participate through the discussion in the meeting and not actually be physically present.
So someone's going to have their own phone plugged in and someone calls into that?
That's correct.
A particular cable that plugs into the phone into the unit?
That's correct. Yeah, there is a specific cable. It does have to be TRRS.
I want to make a quick recommendation here. We are having a discussion. We have discussion systems sitting in front of us. If you happen to push the speak button when you want to talk, that'd be great for two reasons. So everyone can hear your question. But we also have a private streaming channel that we're showing. Don't worry, it's not searchable. You're not coming in that totally right now. But then they can hear your question that way too, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. Great. So another kind of side application of the system would be to provide a wireless feed maybe to a press box or a specific area that may not be directly in line with the system, and that you can do through the station as well. So let's talk a little bit about the software. So there is an embedded web application on the access point transceiver itself, which you can really quickly and easily log into to make some adjustments. When you do that, and I'll pull that up in a minute, there are 3 views that you can pick from. If you're configuring the system, of course, you would want the admin view. That will give you the ability to control the system, make some adjustments, and we'll go through and I'll show you exactly what you have the ability to control through that. There's also a chairman view, which gives you the ability to control microphones in real time, so you can activate microphones or turn them off as a chair right through the GUI on your computer. And then there's a display view. Essentially, that would be great for displaying who's speaking, who has the floor, and who's requested to speak. So those are the three main views available to you within the web application. And keep in mind, when the system fires up out of the box, it will not require a password, so you can actually password protect that if you feel like you're concerned someone might log in. So we talked a little bit about the wireless technology in the system, and I just kind of wanted to drive this point home a little bit further, because this is a real benefit of the system. Even though we're in 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz, we're not operating in traditional Wi-Fi spectrum. We are, but we're utilizing the DFS range to allow us to have much more flexibility in terms of operating more systems and greater reliability. So DFS stands for Dynamic Frequency Selection, and this was opened up to unlicensed devices such as MXCW a couple years ago by the FCC. And what operates in these 5 gigahertz channels typically are weather or radar type systems. And those, of course, have precedence over MXCW. So by nature, in order to operate in this spectrum, the FCC says we have to do a scan, and we have to continuously scan, and if there's any interference, we do have to move out of that channel for a set number of time. So when the system boots up, it will automatically, if it starts out of the box, it's going to go to a 5 gigahertz non-DFS channel. And then it's going to run a scan, a 60-second scan. And if there's no activity on one of those DFS channels, the system is going to operate on those channels. Why? Because typically there's not much there. And the system will kind of favor those channels. They're the primary channels that we're operating in. If there's interference on those channels, it'll move to a DFS channel. And if all of those are occupied, which is possible but rare, you have the ability to operate in the 5 gigahertz range, and then last but not least, it will move to a 2.4 gigahertz channel. And there is the ability to lock out channels that you do not want to operate in. There was a university in New York that actually forces all of their students not to operate in 2.4 gigahertz. So they wanted their 2.4 gigahertz spectrum was absolutely clear, and they wanted to force the system to operate within those 3 channels, and we were able to do that. So you do have the ability to do that. And there is a secondary scanner that's built into the access point that's going to allow the system to configure all of that for you and control all of that for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Maybe you want to restrict some channels, but essentially you don't have to worry about it at all. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to open up the web GUI. Great. So find my mouse here. So is everybody familiar with the Web Device Discovery app? It's a free app that you can download, a free tool from our website. And essentially anything that is on the same network as your computer will automatically be listed if it's a Shure device. And then you're able to very quickly and easily log into the access point through this tool. So you would essentially double click on the device, assuming you know its name. You can also identify devices if you're not certain which access point you might be connected to. But for the MXC WAPT, you also have the IP address on the device itself. So you can actually scroll through the buttons, and you're able to connect directly if you would enter that IP address in your web browser. Make sense? Okay, so as I mentioned, you have these 3 different views here, and right now you have sort of your admin view, which we'll start with. And of course you have the chair and you have the display views as well. So if you guys would actually do me a favor anybody that has a MXCW station in front of them, if you would actually place the battery into your station. I just want to quickly show you how easy it is to get the system up and running. So drop the battery pack in there if you would for me, please. And hopefully you'll start to see stations come online.
Might be important to note at this point that a feature of MXCW is that whatever state the unit is in when the battery is pulled is how the unit will come back when the battery is reinserted. So if you're a rental house that just pulls the battery when the unit's on, you pop a new battery in, it will come back on.
Great, so we're starting to see things come on air. You have 4 main views or tabs on the GUI here. One is devices, you have audio, meeting controls, and wireless. So let's just quickly step through these. So as you can see, as soon as the station associates with the access point, because it was connected to that unit last, you will see the station name itself, and you can change the name of that if you'd like to. So I can make that be Vimessa this time. And I can quickly assign myself to be a chairwoman. And I know in this case I have 12 hours of battery life. And we mentioned 11 hours, but that's on a kind of the worst case scenario we have with this system. You're also going to see an RF strength listing here, and you're also going to see your firmware. You have the ability to go in and make some adjustments here on each of the stations. You can also select multiples or all of them and make adjustments. I'm struggling with this mouse here. Excuse me. You also have the ability to add high pass or low pass filters on the stations themselves. We're going to talk a little bit about audio groups in a minute once we dive into the audio tab. But other things that you can adjust here is the speaking priority. So I can give myself a higher speaking priority. And then later on in some of the meeting controls, we can assign whether or not someone that has a higher priority can interrupt someone with a lower priority. The left button on the station currently, because I am a chair station, or configured my role, I can set that button to have different behavior. So right now it's set to mute. So if your microphone is active and you hold, it's a push to mute essentially. If you hold that mute button, it will mute your audio. But a chair station can also have the ability to mute everyone else's microphone in the conference or that's associated with the system, to turn all of the delegates off, or to have no function. And I'm really struggling with this mouse here. As well as the ability to have an exclusive access to the floor. So it essentially mutes most of the individuals, all of the individuals in the meeting, and then allows that person to say, you know, this conversation's getting out of control. You know, this is it. Wrap it up, 5 minutes.
Would this work for you a little better?
That would probably work a lot better. Thank you, sir.
Yay.
Yay. So any questions on any of that in terms of some of the main settings you have available on the devices tab? Now, typically you would just want to configure your chairperson and maybe your delegate as well.
How many mics can be open at one time?
That's a great question. So you can have a total of 8 mics open at one time, and we'll touch on that in the meeting controls tab in a minute.
Sorry, I got ahead. My bad.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Can you copy settings between different stations?
So you can select different stations.
For example, I want to enable a high pass filter on every single device right now. How do I do that?
So you would basically click here, and I would just enable my high pass. So select all of your microphone stations here at the top, and then make your adjustments accordingly. And if you'd like to just select, you know, mic 1 and mic 2, and I can deactivate that very quickly and easily.
And if a device is not currently online, can I enforce settings when it does come back online?
I don't believe so.
Give us an example.
Yeah.
Say I've got a system set up. I've got a couple of stations that are not present. They haven't arrived yet, but I need to pre-configure the entire room. Need to enable a high pass globally everywhere. Don't want to do it on a DSP, but I want to do it at the station level.
Mm-hmm.
At this current time, the answer would be no. It has to join a meeting. It has to join an access point because that DSP is happening at the access point and not on the unit itself.
Okay.
Okay, great. So you can also identify stations. So if you'd like to see where station number 1 is, it's probably somewhere in the back there. You can do that really quickly and easily. So let's move on to the audio tab. And here we have a number of different features in terms of the ability to control our audio. So we can see seat number 11, who just turned their microphone off. If somebody wants to turn their mic on for just 1 second, help me out with this, I would appreciate it. So any microphone that is active, you can see we have 8 open microphone slots. We can edit this, so 8 is the maximum open microphones that you can have with the system, but of course you can pull that down if you'd like to. Typically, 3, 4, sometimes is a good comfy level, but as you see microphones on, you can see battery status, RF status. You have the ability, if that person is talking and the AGC is deactivated, to actually increase the gain of that particular station. And you have the ability to turn on and off your high pass and your low pass as well.
How many seats, channels did you say can connect to the access point? Was it like 128 or something like that?
So you can have 125 stations connected, and you have the ability for 8 of them to be active at any given time. So 8 people can have their microphones active.
So does that mean...
You say, like, one person talks as a presentation, 2 people is a conversation, 3 people is an argument, 4 people is complete chaos.
So does that mean 8 Dante channels? I'm just even turning these on, a few of them, you can start to hear that feedback. So if you were trying to control that.
By the way, there's another component to how everything is set up. We have MXCW audio fed into the MXC system, which we're going to talk about next, and we have the MXC system fed into the MXCW system. You probably never have a situation like that in the future. We'll tell you why we've done it later, but right now the issue is you've got all these open microphones and all these loudspeakers, and there's no intelligence between the 2 different systems. That's why you're a little bit on the edge of feedback there. And so that first mic slot being 3 dB up already, we probably have to pull that right back down to 0. The idea is just showing that, I guess we'll just say it right now, the idea is showing that you can route audio in and out of these systems, but they do not share any other intelligence. If it was only MXCW, that has its own set of intelligence. It operates, same thing with MXC, even the same thing with the 5900 system. They all operate on their own as a system, but beyond just being able to pass audio between the 2 systems, there's no further intelligence. You can't. It doesn't participate in those 8 mic slots. It doesn't participate in auto mix or nothing.
So everything that you're hearing through your speakers and Vanessa presenting through MXC, we've got these folks in our overflow area that are listening to the presentation on MXCW out there. So unless you're really rich and bored, you probably wouldn't put this many delegate units on the table at a time. So that's why there's a little bit of that feedback of what you're hearing, just because we're physically so close. So I've actually got to turn down just a hair in the back just to balance the levels out, which is why we won't leave everything on for the rest of the presentation. We'll actually use the MXC system for the remainder of the day for Q&A.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so let's move on and look at the inputs tab. So essentially here, we talked about the 10 Dante channels that you have coming into the station and then the analog input to the station. So here you have the ability to actually name those channels. So I could put presenter mic. So I know you can actually assign it as either a line or auxiliary input. And of course you have gain, low pass, high pass, and AGC available on each of those inputs as well as a mute. And so that should be pretty easy in terms of configuring any additional inputs to the system via Dante. Of course, you have to use Dante controller to route sources if you're using Dante. But essentially, you do have this pretty straightforward kind of almost mixing console-like approach to your inputs.
And you're actually seeing on input 2 is the MXC system routed through an ANI 22 because these MXC system is only analog outputs. So we break that into an ANI 22 in, and then of course we have wireless as well. It's on channel 3 coming in also on the ANI 22. And so that's how you see audio is getting routed around and mixed into the MXC system.
Thank you. So a similar view in terms of your outputs. You do have ability to add some EQ on the loudspeakers. This is a global setting, so keep that in mind. You also have some gain adjustments here as well, and then you have a mute capability. We'll talk a little bit about sources in a minute, but essentially you do have the same control in terms of your analog output and your Dante outputs as well. The group mixes is kind of a unique way that you can route different audio sources within the system to different places. So you can see here we have a total of 15 stations, 15 MXCW 640s associated with the access point here. And as we mentioned also, we have Dante input 1 and 2, so we have our wireless presenter mic. We also have MXC wired coming in as an input to this system. And right now we've routed it to the floor mix. So that's why, again, you're hearing it through the loudspeakers on the MXCW. You could remove anything you'd like to. So if there's particular units or stations maybe that don't need to go to the station's loudspeakers, you can pick them off and choose very easily right here within the floor mix section. You have an additional 8 mixes that you can assign. So if I'd like to take microphone 1 and then essentially route that one microphone channel to a recording device via Dante or the analog channel, I can assign that one seat, and then I can come to my outputs, and hopefully I'm not going to mess anything up here, but I would essentially say mix A is going to go out through Dante output 6. So you can assign freely what sources go to which outputs through the mixes. And again, you have a total of 8 mixes that you can freely assign and create on your own. Any questions on the audio functionality? So let's move over to the meeting control. So this is where you decide how the meeting is going to actually run. In terms of the speak mode within the system, you have automatic mode, which means anybody up to that limit that you've assigned can freely join the conference by pressing their microphone button. The manual mode would require the chair to actually activate that microphone. So someone can request to speak and their microphone would flash, and essentially from there the chairperson can say, yes, you can talk, you have the floor. And they can do that either through the GUI or they can do it through their station directly. First in, first out means you go up to that limit, and essentially once you've hit that limit, the next person in line essentially waits until the first person, till one person dumps out of the conversation, and then that person automatically joins the conference. They don't have to activate their microphone. They kind of enter a queue, if you will. So you have the ability here to adjust how many microphones can be active at any given time, and you can see your mic slots will go down. And then you have the ability to actually pick and choose how many delegates can actually be active at one given time. So, you know, if you want to limit, you know, how many of the standard participants in the meeting can actually talk, you can set that number independently as well. I won't go too far into this, but we did talk a little bit about speak priority. So here is where you can actually allow someone with a higher speak priority to interrupt someone with a lower speak priority. Here you can enable an ambient microphone. So in this situation, we are streaming live, and if I am not talking through a microphone, it may seem on the far end that the meeting may have disconnected. So it is good in some cases to enable an ambient microphone so that the person on the far end is going to get a sense that there's activity in that particular room and they haven't lost connection. You can enable or disable NFC here, and those are the near field communication cards, which you can program with participant information for easy login to the system. And then you have some additional controls in terms of who can turn their microphone off, and you can essentially allow that the chairman or someone that's seated at the GUI with a chairman view can only deactivate the microphones. For whatever reason, it's there if you need it. And then you can also set some times in terms of double pressing the speak button, which would cancel the microphone. So you can adjust that level as well through here. Interpretation is available on the system. You have a total of 8 channels that are capable to be provided. And essentially, it's pretty standard to configure. At this point, you would basically turn the channel on or off, and then you would pick your language of choice. And that label is the label that would populate on the person's station if they connected a headphone and they wanted to scroll to a different language. And you would also need to then assign a source from an external input, either analog or Dante. And you can use the group mixes to also route specific wireless stations to a mix, which then can be used as an input to an interpretation channel, if that makes sense. Or you can utilize the other inputs to just route that source from an external system. So last but not least, and pretty important, is the ability to come into the wireless tabs and actually view the wireless capability of the system. So currently we have a total of 27 channels possible with MXCW. And right now we have, it just changed to 15 clear channels. So that means we could have 15 systems with 125 stations each running in this particular environment. Of course, that means if there's interference on one of those channels, you might not have anywhere to move, but I think real world scenario, this is more than enough to run a standard meeting. So you can see right here, the system, we have a little access point icon. So we're currently operating on channel 124, and this is a DFS channel. Right now, the view is sorted by our channel number, but we can also sort it by channel quality. So I can see all of my green channels, which green is good. And we can see right here, the system is doing a scan of this DFS channel, and it's doing kind of a countdown. We may move to that channel. Nope, we're not going to, but we're currently on channel 124. So the system is continuously doing that scanning and background check of all of the available frequencies within the system.
What do the orange ones mean in terms of what's going on in this room right now?
So orange is, it's possible to operate on those channels. However, there may have been something in the past that the system has identified as a potential interference. So it will clearly stay away from that channel unless it has to move over there.
It doesn't mean that anything in this room is trying to operate on those channels. Those are just signifying what channels are available and if they're in the clear or not. Is that right?
Yeah, or, I mean, green is kind of good, best scenario. Orange is, it's possible to operate, but it's probably not ideal. And then red is, you know, we don't really want to operate on those channels because there's activity on those particular channels. And I see Chris is going to interject with some.
Why do you think that? It's probably worth noting that we take this thing to trade shows and so forth, and if you've ever fired up any kind of a Wi-Fi scanner at a trade show, you know that there's just like no space left. Everybody's booth everywhere is using something Wi-Fi, something this or that. But what's unique is that, well, what Vanessa says is exactly true. We still can operate even on a channel that's red. Overall range may be compromised, but it can sit on that channel and it can operate. In fact, at many trade shows, we're the only wireless company that can actually, you know, well, hell, we better be the only wireless company that works, right? We're sure we make it, hopefully it works right. Anyway, when you park our stuff where it goes there, it still works even in a compromised situation.
So last week we had the opportunity to have our global conferencing market development person with us in Chicago. He attended ISE. They went through their wireless scanning device, and they found over 120, I think it was 128 other access points in 2.4 to 5 gig. And we continue to have 0 issues throughout the 2-3 day show, whatever ISE is, with any connectivity. So just because you see orange and you see red doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use it. It just means that your distance will become limited. Just like in standard RF, you know, you can operate on top of a noisy channel. You just begin to limit the distance you can transmit to your receiver.
I would just add one more thing. So if you've ever experienced Shure Axient, and you know what it sounds like when it switches frequencies, you don't hear anything ideally. It's the same thing that'll happen here. So if she all of a sudden says you can't operate on that channel anymore, because she touched on that a little bit about how you could do your own wireless coordination if you want, and limit it to whatever channels you want, make it operate in certain channels. So even if she killed it right now, it would automatically switch to another frequency that it already knows is good, and then scan it, and that will happen without hearing any hiccup or any issue at all. Well, if we were singing in the mics, we would have been able to hear that. Michael had another comment. Yeah. Oh, comment from the peanut gallery. You were going to sing for us?
I was hoping you were, or Michael. Oh. Maybe somebody was having a rendition, something.
Not today. So the moral of the story here is when you show up, you get a really good seat early. Just getting out there. One of the things that's not, it's not something that's in all of our documentation, but it's a word that we all use, which is Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a certified organization that you have to belong to, that you pay your dues, you get licensed to be a part of. We are WLAN. So we're still a wireless LAN system. We are not Wi-Fi. And what does that mean to you? What that means is that from a security standpoint, when our access points are fired up on non-DFS channels that potentially other Wi-Fi, standard Wi-Fi devices can see, they cannot see our devices. And why is this beneficial? That means that our access point is not trying to negotiate a do not disturb with every Wi-Fi device out there. This is how we can operate within this environment in a standard 2.4 or 5 gig that's non-DFS so efficiently. So just to let you know that from a security standpoint, it's a great opportunity that you can't see us. You're not going to see us on your cell phone. You're not going to see us on your wireless NIC from your computer or PC. So again, we're hopefully adding. We don't want to create the conception that we're a Wi-Fi device. So this will hopefully help in the security discussion that you may have with your end users.
Great, thank you. So through these select wireless channels, you can actually come in and limit the channels that you'd like to operate the system on. And this is the way that you can sort of force it to stay out of specific spectrum. You also have the ability to adjust the power setting of the system, and that can be very quickly and easily adjusted right here from the menu that you have.
Why would you want something other than maximum?
If you had multiple, oh,
why would you want something other than maximum?
if you had multiple systems potentially in a space, maybe it's a divisible room environment, you can lock stations down to specific access points. But it might be good to ensure that the systems are operating in a lower power setting that's just enough for that particular room environment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the kind of the anecdotal application would be a divisible room where you've got an A, B, and a C, and A and C could technically share the same frequency on a low power setting because of the distance that they're separated from the B room in the middle.
Okay. Any other questions on RF? Anything else you guys would like to add? I'm sorry.
Why would you want it off?
Well, why would you want it off was the question. I'm not going to do it, but maybe you've got everything configured ahead of time and you know, you want to step away before the meeting starts. You could turn the system off, I guess, would be one application. I don't know if there's any else that you have in mind, but
Probably play a bigger role in troubleshooting. That, you know, if you've had two systems, one's having issues, you just want to isolate, you can easily turn them off.
That's another, yeah, for troubleshooting, certainly. Typically, you'd want it on. You're right. So, any other questions on any of this? I just will quickly then switch over to the chair view. And you can see here, I can easily assign a different speaking mode with the system within this screen. So I could adjust this to be a manual mode. And if someone wants to press their microphone button for me, we'll see that we have a list of requests here. And I have access to speak. This particular station does because it is currently configured as a chair station, so it does not require permission to speak. But I can activate specific microphones, and of course I can see who is actively speaking within the system.
Do those requests come up on the chairman unit itself?
They will, yes. And then you'll have the ability, again, to activate those microphones right from the touch screen of the unit itself. So
Are you able to override the hardwired input as an additional speaker?
Say that.
Yeah.
So you want the hardwired input to come in and participate like a conference unit?
Yes.
I think the answer to that is no.
No, the only way that you could cheat that.
That might be an offline discussion.
So do you want to get calls about this from your end users? There's probably not an easy way to do it. I mean, if you were driving the meeting, there's probably a routing that you could come out, Dante, come out and analog, and then you drive that back into that 3.5 remote jack. And if you were to drive that audio back into that 3.5 millimeter, you could potentially create a remote end user. But it might become a little bit of a science fair project. We like that. We're AV. We like to reinvent the wheel.
Well, what I'm thinking about is somebody that's already got a hardwired system, say a bunch of conference units that are already present, and they want to try to merge those systems, but instead of adding an AV control system that then would be another touch panel at the chairman station.
Currently they all work independently of each other.
So what you would have to do is what Vanessa showed earlier, which is you'd simply go into the MXC AVT into the audio tab, and you could have the mute function on the actual Dante input or the analog input of the system, and that's where you would control that feed coming into it.
still requiring a third-party control system.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could do it from that tab, but again, when you look at your end user, it may not be, it's one thing if you got a technician assigned to the meeting, but if you're trying to do this with the user, it may not be a smooth workflow.
Yeah, we can continue that conversation offline.
It only takes money.
Okay, so the third view that you have available is just simply a display view. So no control of the system, just anyone that's in the request queue and anyone that's active would then be displayed, on your screen in your conference room. So everybody knows, who's speaking. You'll also see that information on your station itself. And that's it for the GUI. Are there any questions? Anything else that you can think of that you may need to control through the system that you'd like to talk about, or anything I went through too quickly?
Does the system work with System On?
Not currently.
What's the roadmap look to have that integrated?
I'm not sure. We're looking at all sorts of different things with the system.
It wouldn't be before end of the year. It would probably be sometime in 2020. System On is looking to get level.
We'd love to have everything
Yeah.
in System On.
Oh, so would I.
Eventually.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm going to introduce Mr. Neiman for the MXC portion. I think so.
Okay.
You going to talk here?
Yeah.
You are? Awesome. I'll trip here. Thank you, guys.
Let's see. Okay. Get reset here. Oh, we've learned so much about why we're in audio and not video this show. Where is my mouse? There it goes. How's everybody doing? Is it time to relieve coffee yet?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do that real quick and take 5, 15, something like that. We'll reconvene here.
Yep. Cool. All right.
everybody need the Wi-Fi? Everybody get the Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Was that password for the one that says gas?
No, he said no. Yeah, I never seen it.
I never seen it. I didn't see that as an SSID. Should do that. I'm not surprised.
This is Ryan.
Check it out. He's got something. He's running a
Yes, hi.
So this.
Yeah, that one right there. All lowercase, capital.
No, I do not. I'm sorry.
You know what I mean? It's like really, y'all let it fix what they got. We get that, they're still if this is what you wanted to begin with, you should have said, hey, we want this little integrated team system. It wasn't in, and they suggested it was a little question. Yeah. Yeah, so let's just wrap that up. Sensitivity, so you can all this trouble because that's what they ask for. And they can do that with the get 8 channels. This is the microphone as let's see.
One thing we didn't talk about, maybe we can pick up on that whenever we go to MXC, is how this operates. If I can find it actually really snaps. You can have this thing start to scan for SSIDs. We can label those SSIDs. So you can view these things down in the corner. So that's there.
I was just copying him so he could see that my stuff. So I don't know who should say that. I did it, but I did it. That's what I did it. But I didn't do it as a clerk on the job. I just did it as a separate post.
But yours could be, you literally could type and then when you really sit and fire it up,
just to make sure whatever. I think it's the same.
Comfortable in here? Maybe need a cooler. Warmer. Warmer. Warmer?
All right, guys, make our way back as much as we can, anyway. One of the things, before we move on to Microflex Complete, something had come up, maybe it's worth discussing in a little more detail. The old divide combined. You know, we've all been looking for a solution for that. And I remember when I was in contracting, FSR was the only real solution at that point. Those custom panels and all that big hardwired stuff. Anybody install one of those before? Yeah. So now with all the wireless stuff, we deal with this all the time, whether it's ULXD or Microflex Wireless or now Microflex MXCW, right? And I think we have a really good solution for MXCW. There's different modes. Vanessa mentioned the technician mode in there. You can set these units to turn on and activate in different ways. One of the ways that the unit can turn on is by turning on and telling you what available access points there are. So the access point can be assigned an SSID, like was discussed already, this thing here, and you can name that room A. You can name another one room B that's in room B, and another one room C. And then as your technician wheels the cart full of delegate units out and hands them into different rooms, when those units power up on the screens, you'll be presented with a list of SSIDs that it finds. Now bear in mind, these are SSIDs that only our units can see. This is a private connection between our access point and those devices. You're not going to see them on your phone or anywhere else. But again, you're labeled by what room you're in, and you simply on the touchscreen select what room that unit is in, and it associates with that access point. So this makes the divide combine situation, you know, much more palatable. If you're in those situations with ballrooms, or maybe it's a corporate space where you can install access points all over the place, but you want to save some money and not buy hundreds of the delegate units, but rather maybe 25 or 50, because that's all you would ever use at any one given time. So I wanted to make sure we mentioned that. Is there any other questions that we need to sew up before, maybe related to that? No? All good? Okay.
Actually, I got one. Can you block or deny a delegate unit from connecting to a specific access point?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, this is the other challenge, right? If we allow you to connect to different units, what if you walk down to the executive conference room with a unit and you wanted to peer in and listen to what was going on in there? So yes, you can absolutely have certain units only associate with certain access points. All right, moving on. Microflex Complete. It's a kind of a complete refresh of a product line that has been out there for a while. If you're not familiar, we mentioned it before. This is the old 6000 series stuff. That's all I need to say about that. We've refreshed it. Some really good key components here. What stays the same is we still need a central CCU. Let's fire this thing up here. Yep, here's our CCU. Conference units, of course, they can be either portable or flush, and goosenecks, and including a cool name sign. So on the central control unit, this is the thing that really is the heart and soul of the whole system. It can be expanded to 3,800 units. Out of the box, you get 4 interpretation channels. For us here in America, that's probably more than we'll ever need. But, I don't know, you might have some instances where you need more, because you can also update that feature license to get more channels. The thing has a built-in web server, so it's simple and easy to control and set up. There are 8 analog outputs via XLR and 2 analog inputs also via XLR. And the unit all by itself can power up to 50 conference units, okay? The neat trick here, in addition to many other things, is that now we can build a redundant system. DIS, the company that we bought several years ago, has been doing this for a long time. Very robust system. And it wasn't until just recently that we offered a redundant opportunity. It never really needed it before. The system is robust. Now, it's true that a cable can be broken or cut, and you have to fix that problem, but rarely would the unit itself go down. So that's new to the system. The takeaway here, guys, this requires a feature license, an FL6000, to make it become MXC compatible. Okay, out of the box, it works with 5900. That's the way it's meant to come out of the box. Great, you're working with 5900. Oh, I got MXC. Did you buy FL6000? That's the next question. Hopefully the answer is yes. Otherwise, it's a frantic call to somebody saying, why doesn't this work? All right. What's the difference in the portable units? Pretty straightforward. They all share chairman and delegate modes, NFC card reader, dual delegate operation, and Braille overlay. If you want 5-button voting, you're going to have to use the 630, MXC 630, and you'll see those sitting in front of you there. If you want the touchscreen display, that's the MXC 640. Again, you've got those sitting in front of you there. We also have flush units available, and again, these both have everything in common: chairman and delegate modes, NFC card, single delegate interpretation. But if you want 5-button voting, you've got to use the MXC 630F. There's examples of these units outside, sitting on the table in some nice wood things. We got our first technical issue of the day. By the way, you never unplug it while it's live. What's interesting, what you didn't see, the second you unplugged that, there were mics that popped on and off all throughout the rest of the chain. So we might as well take a moment to discuss that real quickly. It's not that big of a deal. The issue becomes, you know, there's one major power supply sitting over there feeding power to all these units as part of the protocol. So unplugging it is not that big a deal. We always just say turn the power off before you plug or unplug. It's when you plug it back in, how many units have been on that chain and now how many of them have to fire up, and you might have an issue with voltage at that point where something lets the smoke out. So, sorry. Thank you for allowing me to take that opportunity to talk about cable.
Yeah, I was going to ask if this system was redundant, and then I just figured I'd unplug it and see.
Yeah, that was great. We did not deploy redundancy here, no. We have not. But look how robust it is. You plug it back in and it still works. All right, the modular units. This is the MXMIU FS flush. They tell me, I've yet to really believe them yet, but they tell me the F means short, and the MXC MIU FL for long. It's like somebody in Denmark invented these names. That was this system was built in Denmark, by the way. Danes. Sorry. Those units can be chairman or delegates as well. Fixed speak and function buttons, and they connect to this device here on the right-hand side, the MXC MIU. So that happens, by the way, over an HDMI cable. Okay, it's a locking HDMI cable. The L version has that integrated loudspeaker, and as I mentioned, these cannot exist alone. They have to have. This is the smarts. All the guts of what's in these devices in front of you is in that box, and we're simply remote mounting out the mic and the loudspeaker. We'll talk a little bit later today about the about the HDMI connection. Saw some of you raise your eyebrows when we said HDMI for audio. But this unit also has an audio input via XLR, which is nice. You can add an ambient mic or maybe a wireless input, you know, at the end of a chain or somewhere in the middle of a chain. You need a drop for an input. That gives you an XLR input there. Interpretation. This is a really cool console. We've spent a lot of time on designing this and building it. It is ISO certified. And it does lots of really cool stuff that I'm not sure too much of us here are actually going to get into. Does anyone in here do meetings or involved in meetings that have interpretation? Moving along. The gooseneck mics, as you would expect, all the great options, including the shotguns. We'll talk about those a little later as well. And then the name sign. This is really cool. This is, frankly, can be a product line all on its own. We've seen a lot of folks have interest in these devices. So it is dual-sided. We've got 4 of them up here, and it's a 1900 by 460 4-bit grayscale display. It's powered over the DCS LAN, so it's just part of the loop through. The thing is programmable via either Software 6000, which you haven't talked about yet, or through the web GUI that's inside the CCU. And it can be single or dual delegate or participant capable, meaning I could have a sign sitting between 2 people and there'd be a set of information on one side and another set of information on the other side. But what's really cool is that, as we've seen in some government work, there's a technician that is programming these in a back room somewhere. They put them on a cart and wheel them out and set them up wherever those folks are going to sit that day. So once you've written to the unit, because it's e-paper, it retains its image forever. So I can unplug it. It doesn't need power or anything. I just go set it wherever it needs to go. And as you can see here, it can be tabletop or flush mount. These units are the tabletop, but if you remove this trim ring right off the bottom, you now could flush mount it into some millwork. Okay. The system works on our proprietary DCS LAN cables, and the point, just take a moment once again to reiterate, use these cables from unit to unit. These are your patch cables, okay? Installed wiring, we all know you're not going to pull, customers aren't going to pull pre-terminated cable through conduit. So we have a spec for the cable that it needs to be, and pull that through the conduit, but terminate it to a female connection, because that's a punch down instead of trying to do a crimp, where we find is 99% of the problems is incorrectly terminated end. So, cool. Feature licenses. These things are things that live in the hardware. Once again, FL, feature license, lives in hardware. And the FL6000 is required if you want to use MXC. Up to 250 units are allowed with standard FL6000. If you need more than 250 units, if you 251, that's going to be an extra charge that can be quite expensive for one extra guy, but you get up to 3,800 participants now. Okay, so the system can control up to 3,800 system. It won't power them, but it'll control them. Additional options include interpretation. So remember I said it comes out of the box with 4. If you want to upgrade, you can get 8, 16, or 31 total language interpretation channels. Okay.
Are these licenses perpetual, or is there like a rental option?
Great question. The license is perpetual. Yeah. So if you were a rental company, perhaps, and you find yourself doing more than 250, you're going to buy FL6000-3800 in addition to your FL6000. It might be worth noting at this point that inside the GUI, once you have upgraded your unit, you can switch back and forth between a 5900 system and an MXC or 6000 system. So if you own rental stock of both, one CCU could potentially work for you. Hear me clearly though, that doesn't mean I can use 5900 and MXC conference units mixed. It's one or the other, but my CCU can be set up to control either MXC or 5900. Okay. Okay, that user interface, the browser-based system, it's baked into the CCU, provides basic system functionality without any additional software. In the case, though, that you need additional control, this is where Software 6000 comes in. Software 6000 is installed on a Windows machine. Okay, Software 6000 is related to external control through a Windows machine. And you use Software 6000 to configure, manage, and personalize all aspects of your MXC conference. Now, for those of you who remember DIS, you know this list on the left-hand side. Software 6000, many years ago, started out, and then when the Danes found out that they could potentially get a job in Poland or in Turkey or wherever, what would happen is that those governments would say, well, we need it to do this. But then a different government would say, we needed to do this. So what happened over time is it just, Software 6000 became a kind of a very bloated thing, in a good way, I guess. But it made it very hard for a lot of us, especially here in America, to really understand what the hell is all this stuff. So in a typical Shure fashion, we've been trying to pare down all of these pieces and parts. So for instance, today, if you buy Software 6000, the complete conference management software includes all of these. We don't have to break this stuff up anymore. It's all included. I can add CAAs, which are other modules that allow me to administer a meeting. A CUA is a conference user application that somebody in the conference would be using. We'll see how that works in just a minute. The CDA is a display application, which allows you to display things like the vote or the request to speak or things like that. Voting. Do you even need voting? If you need recorded voting and that kind of thing, that's a separate software package. So we've narrowed down 28 SKUs to 8. That's the takeaway here, and tried to very much simplify it. And again, just kind of to reiterate, Software 6000 includes all of these things, including a CAA and a CUA. So I'm going to step out on a limb and say, for the majority of what we do here with municipalities, with city governments, with structured meetings of any kind, we're probably going to be good to go with Software 6000, this basic suite, okay? You can add on things like another CAA. If you need another conference administrator, you can add up to 15 of those licenses, and those live on a computer, okay? Everyone who needs to be an administrator needs to have some kind of look. It'd be a little nook. We have 4 little nooks in that rack back there that's running all kinds of different pieces and parts of our system. The CUA, that's a conference user application. So, for instance, you get one, and maybe the clerk is going to be able to use that device, application, but maybe you want to have another CUA for the mayor, if they really want to have that much control over the meeting. Okay, and then a CDA probably is a good important thing if you want, again, like I said, to display anything. That is an extra add-on, and you can have up to 16 of those applications running at one time.
Where would those be displayed?
So the way CDA works.
Where would those be displayed?
I
don't think did that come out?
Oh, you're on the MXCW. There you go.
Where would those be displayed?
Thank you. Now, yeah, I can hear you clearly now. It's so much more intelligible. CDAs is an application that lives on a NUC, and when the time is appropriate, you'll fire something off probably from the user application saying display the vote. The CDA then will, which is the output of that computer for which it's installed on, this video output, is taken to whatever display that you want. Okay. All right.
So understanding that SW6000 is a software application, does Shure offer a hardware appliance option for a CDA to include the NUC?
We do not, no. It can be, like I said, a simple little NUC. It needs to be a PC. It's an application that runs on a PC. Did I answer that question?
Yes.
Okay.
It's Windows 10 is what it runs on. So why do we need to sell you a computer that has to go through your security compliance?
I think was that a HWPCO person that asked that question?
No.
No.
It's Georgia Tech.
Ah, Georgia Tech. Hey, hey.
Those people that push the
Go Bulldogs, right?
Oh.
Is it the Gators? No, I can't. All right, additional add-on modules include Software 6000 Vote. Okay, this allows voting from the CUA, the user application. And again, I can't tell you why some of these guys come up with these part numbers that sometimes they include us, sometimes they don't. This is an example that some engineer came up with, I guess. So SW6000-Advanced, or ADV-50, allows you to control up to 50 microphones, agenda control, and speech time. If you want to control more than 50, you just get the ADV version. Just side note that, okay? Finally, an SW6000-ESI. This is really an external application, meaning how do I create a socket to the outside world if I have a control system or something else that I want to get access to my hardware, to my software. You need the ESI to do that. It's an API control and streaming. So the system at a glance, pretty straightforward here. We're showing kind of a mixed system between portable type units and flush units. There's no requirement that it needs to be one or the other. We've even got a couple of interpreter consoles in here and some name signs. There are those 4 DCS LAN chains that we talked about earlier. I've got network connection to my outside world so that I'm controlling the unit. And I've got a web browser built in for setup, control, or monitoring. Again, you've seen how we can display request to speak. You know, the most simple of systems might be a wireless access point with somebody that has an iPad that allows them to turn on and off microphones or request to speak. You know, very simple, very easy to operate. And then on the other hand, if you need more, you can do the Software 6000 package on a PC. In application, simple city council chambers. Let's say they need participant ID because that venue gets used by different groups. So they want to be able to have a chip card come in with somebody's name on it. You know, something like this. They slot it in, and once they've done that, it registers not only that they are there as a participant, but it allows them to have access to the unit, and whatever rights they might have is associated with that. So great, we can do that. We can handle that. That's part of the NFC card and MXC sign thing. We can have that there. They want to have agenda management. No problem, we can do that as well. They can set it up in Software 6000. They could also do a simple Word table in Word doc and import in a Word doc, okay? They want to be able to record the vote because these are public meetings and they're accountable to the constituents for which you voted them in. So no problem, we add Software 6000 vote, and now we can record all those things, okay? How about taking it to the next level though, some larger conference? This is branded an international conference, but it certainly could be, I've been to Weight Watchers conferences as a tech. I need to go as a attendee someday. But you know, those conferences could be thousands of people, and they all need to be able to talk and be heard. So in this case, let's say the need is 28 channels of interpretation, which by the way, Weight Watchers does also have interpretation. They need agenda and voting. Great, we can handle that through Software 6000. And they need to be able to display the agenda. Well, we need a CDA, right, a conference display application to do that. Got it, no problem. We hit all the stars there. Even a boardroom, a simple boardroom, maybe one bigger than this, but in this case they need participant ID. Got that covered with an NFC card slot. They need voting, but not recorded. Well, that comes free. That comes out of the box. You can vote on these units directly without the need of any external software, but it's not recorded anywhere. Somebody would have to take a picture of it with their phone to record it, right? It's a real-time thing that happens, and once the vote stopped, it went away. You don't see it anymore. You don't know what it was about. You don't know anything. And then maybe in this scenario, you need one channel of interpretation. Okay. We do have a web-based configuration tool. It's kind of built around the idea that you could run into power-related issues or protocol-related issues based on how long these things are. So with this web configuration tool that's found here at http dcslan.shure.com, you can build your system. There's a 50, I know it's hard to see. Later today we're going to pull up this web GUI. But you can see that there's a 5900 here, and then you enter a length of cable, your first unit, the lengths of cable between the units, et cetera, and it gives you a full configuration of, it actually turns red, you know, if like there's a problem, you've hit your limit. So this is a great tool, and it's available right now today on the web. Pricing. These are map prices. Probably more importantly, you know, here's some feature license stuff. It's real quick, I will point out. You notice that FL6000 is the same as FL6000-3800. Again, you have to buy this to turn it into a MXC compatible unit. If you need to get more than 250 conference units controlled, you got to buy this one, and it's twice the price. Okay, so that's why we're saying if you have 251 that's an expensive one extra seat, you know. Yeah, that's good enough for now. Okay. Here's probably where the rubber meets the road, though. The bigger question is, hey, here's a simple system with a CCU plus FL6000. I've got some conference units out here, my microphones, that's roughly $23,000 map, 23.5, 4, whatever. If I wanted to add software 6000 in this scenario, it's only about a $3,000 increase, okay? That price, as you can imagine, is on a sliding scale based on how many conference units you have. Okay? So, at this point, did I cover everything? Any questions on MXC? We're going to deeper dive into it this afternoon. But I think what we want to do now, let me make sure I got this right. Yeah. We want to show you guys how this thing works in the real world. This is where we bring in our paid actors.
So, quick question. If we buy the API license, do we get access to the other features without having those also licensed?
No. If you need to vote, you have to buy vote. There's no way to, that enables that part of the software to begin with. So once you buy vote, then you can get access to see what the results were of those votes and maybe do something else with them. But you still have Yeah, come on up, council people. Well, we're getting everything fired up and ready here. We want you to pay attention to a couple of things. As I mentioned before, well, let me just ask, aside from the guys that are here from government agencies, how many of you have participated in local government at any level? Okay, good. I think part of the challenge that we have here in the U.S. a little bit is that a lot of us just don't participate too much in the goings-on that happens in these municipalities. We may not totally understand the requirements and the needs for voting and all this kind of thing. So the hope and the idea here is that you can actually see what might happen in a city council meeting. And so there's a script, and hopefully we'll read it correctly, or not. It might be, the script itself hopefully gives you a little bit of, I don't know, maybe there's some funny lines in there. But what you've got here on my left-hand side over my shoulder is we are using a One Beyond camera tracking system, and it's queuing off of what microphones are being activated. And we're actually also streaming that. So that's an auto switch thing. This is really just to kind of show you guys that we can interface with other devices, okay? Right behind me, you're gonna get to see what the city clerk is doing. This is a mimic, okay? Or, excuse me, a CUA called a user application. And then on the right-hand side is a CDA, the display application. So the question came up earlier, where does that go when it gets displayed? There's different things happening there. So if you get really tired of listening to us yak through this script, I don't blame you, but watch what's happening up here. And then when we're done, we're gonna go through it and kind of look at everything that was going on. Cool?
Real quick, the camera control, is that being used with the API, or is that something you've got integrated? without the API?
There is an ESI involved, and what they're doing, actually, no, I can take it back, there's not. That camera tracking system is looking specifically, we can tell you what unit is turned on.
Yeah. It's referencing, so what you'll see, right now we haven't started the meeting, so you'll see that the screen has not flipped anywhere.
Oh, is it on auto switch?
Let me make sure it's on auto switch. We were futzing around with it this morning. When you start the meeting, what it will select is seat positions, and then you'll actually, as you fire the seat positions, the one beyond camera system sees that seat is, the mic's live, and then it selects, it basically has a primary, secondary camera, so it will select one or the other if one's not in use to then show that person, and you can do like a split screen. Yeah, let me double check that real quick.
So please feel free to laugh with us or at us.
I'm sorry, we don't know who you are. Your nameplates aren't lit up.
Oh, well, I think it's time to start the meeting then. Oh man, that's fancy. How'd you know how to do that?
We went to that training.
I thought that was just paid nap time. Yeah, all right. Well, anyway, let's just go ahead and move forward with our agenda.
Hello, I have.
Oops. Haven't you ever heard council people are supposed to be seen and not heard? Anyway. That was kind of like magic. Your mic is on now. How'd that happen?
I can activate the mics directly from my desk, Mr. Mayor.
Isn't that giving you a little too much control, Mrs. Mouse?
Our first agenda item for today is the public comment and then vote of Proposal 617, which reads, "No person shall attempt to sell pickles that do not bounce when dropped from 1 foot and are therefore unfit for human consumption."
You know, it's true. It's unfortunate that that there seems to be an epidemic of pickle rustlers around here. I myself had bought a bad jar of pickles at the local corner store. Had one bite and knew the thing was just not right. It was phony, in fact. There was no crunch. Can you believe that? A pickle with no crunch?
We'd like to open up the floor for discussion.
I'm totally figuring this thing out. Hey, wake up, Councilman. You have a rough night or something?
It was a late one.
Yeah? You need a little coffee?
Yeah.
All right. I think I'm getting the hang of this.
Is there any public discussion on Proposal 617?
What qualifies a 1 foot bounce? Are we talking about the height after it hits the ground or after it hits a table?
Well,
what is the drop distance?
That's an interesting subject, and you can get in line if you have comment there that you want to add, all right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, didn't hit the button right, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a serious matter to discuss today, and I can do it in 2 words.
Oh, really? Brief? Pithy? I like that. Can you start the timer for her?
It's actually running already. You can see it there on the display. As soon as the mic is activated, the timer starts automatically.
Wow.
Well, since in my last 5 seconds here, food freedom. Thank you very much.
Food freedom? What the heck's that supposed to mean?
Mayor, this isn't a debate. It's simply a forum. Comments have been recorded. Any other comments?
Whatever.
With no further discussion, the council will now vote on Proposal 617.
Awesome. All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Mayor, this new system actually allows you to place your vote on the screen, replaces the verbal vote completely. So if you could indicate your vote.
How do I do that?
So right there on the touch screen, you can actually type yes, no, or abstain.
That seems
vote.
really easy. Yeah. Perfect. Can't get any easier than that. So, yes, the reality is a pickle should crunch, by God. That's the American way. Councilperson 2, are you serious? Voted no?
What? I don't like the thought of eating a pickle that's been on the floor.
I'm sure they'd clean it up first. Come on. You still an A?
Nay.
Thank you, Mr. Goat. Whatever. No matter. It's 2 against 1, and we win. Or it's, yeah, whatever it was against 1.
The ayes have the vote. Proposal 617 passes.
Next item is Proposal 618, which reads, "It is hereby deemed a felony and therefore illegal for anyone to knowingly poach a Sasquatch in the county with a fine of $1,000 and up to a year in jail." We again open the floor for public discussion.
With all due respect, council, this would completely be unnecessary and further hurt this community economically. We get lots of curious folks walking around these woods looking for a Sasquatch, and yes, they're heavily armed. It's for protection. If someone ever did find the hairy beast just to get a good picture, he could very well rip your arms right off. And besides, the money we'd get for killing a Sasquatch in self-defense would far exceed the fine, so it wouldn't stop my cousins anyway.
Well, all righty then. Anyone else? Nope. Okay, then it's time for another vote. All right. Voting in here. City Council Person number 2. Seriously? What is with you today? Hang on, don't talk yet.
The rednecks have it.
Line. My mouse quit working. Okay, Mr. Goat, I'll let you talk. Go ahead.
There's no Sasquatch that exists.
That is your opinion.
Actually, after decades, centuries even, no evidence of such a creature.
You know what? After decades and centuries, I'm tired of hearing you talk. So, with that, I'm glad common sense has won the day. And anything, let's see, common sense has won the day and we won again, right? I hope. Oh, it didn't. We're going to retake this vote later, just like all the other. Never mind. There's a line there somewhere. So, shall we just, anything else on the agenda there?
No, sir.
No? Okay, then shall we adjourn this meeting?
This meeting is adjourned. This meeting has been streaming live. The recording and voting results will be available online soon.
Thank you, Miss Mouse. This meeting is adjourned. All right. That was our shtick. Thank you. So, were you all kind of able to see what was going on with the screens? And, you know, you saw camera switching hopefully over here working as different people activated their microphones. Let's start then with just the very beginning. We started a meeting. So we came out of we were in what was called a participant meeting, okay, where we all had the right to activate our microphones and stuff. By the way, thank you, extras. Checks in the mail. So as you can see here, we have different meetings that we can fire. These are meetings that have been set up in Software 6000. This is done before, of course, our meeting. And so if Vanessa wanted to fire maybe the presentation meeting, or, okay, she's going to stop this meeting first. You'll notice the microphones quit working because it's kind of a reset. If you're going from one meeting to the next, it has to maybe reconfigure how everything works. My vote might be weighted in one meeting, and another one we might not even need voting. Also, different setups here. right? The signs have rewritten, so now we're just in the standard presentation meeting. And then I think if we go back into our council meeting, whoop, there we go. Got to open my mic up. So the CDA, this could be a custom screen, you know, your image, whatever you want, any kind of notes there that you want to show people, but that fires off right away. And then once she actually starts the meeting, that's when you'll see this seat has been associated with this sign as well. So in this scenario, these are assigned seatings. We know the mayor is always going to come in and sit in one place. We know council people are going to sit in their space as well. Before we're done, we're going to switch over to an NFC card meeting, which is more typical of like a Parks and Rec meeting or a Water District meeting where there is not really necessarily any assigned seating. People can sit wherever they want. But while we're here, the next thing is we pulled up the agenda, and there's different seating roles and sign changes there that just happened. And as she's working her way through the agenda, it actually, in our mock meeting, remember the first thing that happened is I didn't know how to turn on this mic over here because I'm a mayor that didn't go to training. So Mimic is another really cool feature that allows you to bring in whatever kind of graphic. It could be a picture of your space. And then you place these little microphones in space, and then it allows her to turn on and off those microphones. So in this case, if she wanted to turn on Dick Dastardly? Wow. Is that a character? We had a Brit set up all these names, so I have no idea where these came from. But anyway, somebody's mic is on now. Who's? Oh, there. No? Okay. Yeah. Sammy Shrimp. So at this point now, somebody has requested to speak. Sammy. And I have the ability on my touch screen here or on my CUA to turn your microphone on or to turn it off. So I can just do that from here. She can also do it from there. Okay.
Cool.
So very simple, easy control. This is a great technician screen as well. So the larger a group grows, it's harder maybe for a technician to know exactly where a person is. So by identifying them here is a great thing for a technician or a secretary, clerk, whatever. Teddy Turtle, you got something to say?
No, I just wanted to hear my own voice.
From here, I can also turn everybody off right from my touchscreen. And again, this is because I have chairman, rights that have been set up here for me to do that. Okay.
Where do you get that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Where do you get that template to that you generated there to put the mics on the table and the?
We actually, someone within Shure built this.
I see. That's not part of the.
Probably?
So that was done in SketchUp. You can literally. Technology works when you use it. The image itself, you just drop in. So you select any, I think it's a PNG or a JPEG. You simply drop it in, and the dots that you see are what references the seats. So later on, we can actually show this real quick, throw an image in this afternoon. But you create any type of picture of your room and then simply drop the dots in, and that's what gives you the control.
Thank you.
It's probably worth pointing out real quick, you saw the speech timer that happened, right? It was flashing red. Those can be assigned. If it hits the limit, you can say turn the mic off if you want. There's certainly in certain countries, they have to give everyone equal time. So in some cases, they have it set up that way where there's just no talking over your time limit. Most of the time here in the U.S., it's not really the case.
I'm looking at the 640, and it looks like it's got the meeting name in the top left corner.
Yeah.
Does that scroll? Because right now it looks like the name itself is longer than the allowable characters there.
Interesting. So if I... Are you looking at this screen here?
I'm on the home screen.
Oh, I see what you're seeing. Up at the top left-hand side.
It doesn't scroll, but if you sign out, so to speak, back to your front page, it gives you the full meeting name.
And the way you sign out, if you want to see that, is you hit the settings wheel, the cog wheel, you sign out, and you'll see the whole thing. The idea being that you know what meeting you're in, hopefully. And you can, so when you sit down, you touch your screen and you're now part of that meeting, okay? All right. What else did we cover? We covered things like voting. And you'll notice that this is recorded now here. One was checked, meaning it passed. The X means it failed. I think later today we're going to get into how this is recorded. And it is a public document. It can't be changed. You could go back and vote and vote and vote again, which is what happens in some, I guess, Middle Eastern parliaments where it's like there's one button voting. Yes, whatever the king says or wherever. Anyway, Danger Mouse.
Do you have any way to export that or?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So when you, first of all, let me ask further. When you say export, you want to have it on a document or do you want to have it?
Yeah, a way to pull it out and distribute to the people that need it.
Yes. Yep, there's a PDF document at the, when you hit end meeting, there's a PDF document that is created and you can hit print immediately and it'll print, they pick them up on the way out the door. If you want to show voting results or capture voting results maybe via third-party software somehow, for some reason, we can also tell you how votes ended up at the end of the vote. Go ahead and start a vote. Here's the other thing that's interesting here. You'll notice on your screens that once a vote started, you have the ability to change your vote as many times as you want. A lot of our constituents wait and see how the vote's going to decide how they're going to vote. So if it looks like something's going to pass and they're really not for it, they can vote no and be on record for voting no. But for this reason, you cannot access a real-time vote necessarily through third-party control, but once the vote is ended, we'll give you all that information, okay? Okay. So on my screen, by the way, I could have stopped that vote or started it even from my screen.
Is there any transcription service available with this?
It sure doesn't offer one.
Okay.
But
like if you wanted, a transcribed meeting, what could it be, printed and published, so to speak?
Yeah. Teddy,
is the mimic diagram applet? Is that something outside of Software 6000? Is that the camera system that gives us that layover?
Are you talking about this graphic itself?
Yeah.
The graphic itself is whatever you create.
Okay, then I'm saying
you
it's
have to
wrong.
have software. You create that inside of Software 6000, and you can actually have multiple mimics that you select for the meeting. So in case you have a reconfigurable room, or maybe you have a mobile system that may do Board of Regents every quarter, but then you take the same system to go do some sort of conference where it's a table set up, you can create different mimics and then label each unit as a seat number, and that way you know that they all consistently lay out based on that. But all of that is inclusive to SW6000.
Can I ask everybody to just pull the battery out of their MXCW system? You can just leave it right by there. Thank you. So we talked about the CUA, right? The conference user application, literally the person using all the features of the meeting, getting it set up. In this instance, it could be the city clerk, it could be the mayor. We both have one. We talked about the CDA and its application. By the way, I think maybe I mentioned this. That also is a customizable. If you don't like that, this I think this one comes for free. We give you that, or the ability to change whatever color you want. You can bring your own, if you want the city seal or whatever you want as a backdrop, you can put that in there. Even, we can give you lower thirds, so like when somebody's talking, it could show up on my video stream if you wanted to. The delay here, maybe some of you are thinking about this. This is the feed that's going live to our private YouTube channel. So there's a lip sync issue in this room, right? Because there's delay on the video, but the far end video is perfectly in sync, no issues. And there's an example sitting out there. One of the nooks outside is actually running that private YouTube channel. You can listen in and see what it sounds like. Guys, I just got to tell you, especially for our reps, what I have seen over and over again is the desire for these agencies, especially the smaller ones, to get their stuff on Facebook Live. For me, I see a lot of Facebook Live. And what happens is it starts out probably with somebody in a phone, and they go, well, that looks like crap. So maybe they upgrade their video system, and then they go, well, it sounds really bad now too. So I think there's plenty of opportunity at my city council. They still have like the switch that it's a toggle switch. One way is red and it turns a light on that's red above them, and the other way is green and it's a yes or no. And then they'll say yay, nay. Everybody shouts yay or nay, and then they go one by one. Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, how did you vote? Right down the line, and the secretary's writing it down by hand. So I believe that here in the U.S., while this system originally was introduced to us as an amazing system that the United Nations uses and all these things, and all of us went, we don't have a damn United Nations in our territory. What am I ever going to sell this, or how am I going to ever use this? The reality is this is very usable for lots of different applications, even at the smallest of local levels. Okay. One last thing, I guess. We have another question from the floor.
Does Shore offer commissioning services?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes, unofficially. We're looking to make it more official. Yeah. So if you look, here's the long and short of it. If you get all the gear installed and you've tested everything, most of what you need to have done is at the computer level, which could be done remotely. And we do that today all day long for free. If, on the other hand, somebody says, Sure has to be here to help commission this, and that doesn't mean terminate wires and pull wires and all that kind of stuff. It literally means, help get the software up and running and set up for the meetings tiles that you have. Yes, we do that. Yeah.
As a side note to that, for the reps and dealers in the room, do we have end users in here? End user, I know we got a company in here. I know, I like Sam. So just to let you know that going forward, anytime you purchase a CCU and you purchase Software 6000, you will be required to set up an appointment with our support team to help install the software on the end user's PC. So for end users that are in here, there are, because it is an SQL database going onto your machine, there are certain things that could become not as easily integrated because of security and other IT policies. So we do want to allot time for that. So if you are selling SW6000, just make sure to reach out to your project manager and let them know that this needs to be scheduled ahead of time. This is not something that you install 3 hours before you're trying to do your final training. You do need to give us some time because you are installing a database onto a machine. It's not just simply a high-level app that you're throwing on there.
Yeah, good point. While we're at it, let's start up let's end this meeting and let's do There we are, ready to go. And again, this is an example of some other place that doesn't have assigned seating necessarily. There we are. So it follows me wherever I go. This also could be PIN activated. So if you don't like the idea of using NFC cards, you can have specific PINs assigned to persons that log in with their PIN, and that will log them in wherever they sit down. Okay? Are we ready for what's next? Is it lunchtime yet?
We are shooting for noon lunch for setup. So I think we've got, what time is it?
Are there any questions at this point?
We got about 20, I think about 25 minutes before they'll be officially ready for lunch break.
Okay. So I guess, did you want to talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Did we figure out if the, oh, so it does follow the NFC, that's cool. API license, the ESI, I think it was.
For?
Whichever feature license it was for the camera track.
So the question was, do you have to have the ESI license for camera tracking? And the answer is, it depends. Thank you. It depends on what it is you need to see. We can show you, all of these units have a seat number assigned to them, and essentially kind of like a MAC address. And when the speak button fires, we can show you that information. So in the case of the One Beyond system, they're looking at what seat numbers are being fired, and we have presets set for the camera. So every time seat number 1 fires, which is actually that one, the camera presets will change, and it has an auto switching algorithm as well, change to that. So in the case of what we're doing right now, there is no ESI. It's looking at what seat numbers being fired. Okay.
So in that, I guess
you can push now.
In that case, we're adding the camera to this Shure system rather than extracting something from the MXC system.
ESI. Again, it's all on the same network, and it's looking for what unit is being touched. And when it sees that, it's making a decision to change to a different preset. Yeah. Another question from the floor?
The SQL requirements, does that require a separate license from Microsoft, or will this operate on SQLite?
No.
It comes with...
It's, so when you download Software 6000, we have it operating on Windows 10 Professional, and even I actually have it, I just upgraded it, but it was Windows 10 Home version. It comes with everything you need to drop the software. You don't have to reach out to SQL or anything for additional licensing.
Another question up front here.
How does the camera actually know to go to that position? Do you physically put it in someplace and orient it, and then it knows?
Yeah, so all these 3 cameras were set up, and when that button fires, you saw it do a quick move.
Yeah, somebody wiggled the camera or moved the camera so that once it's oriented to there, when you go here, it knows.
We saved that as a preset.
I see.
Yeah, it was saved as a preset.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
If I provide my own SQL server, can I use that?
For what?
For the SW6000?
No, you just don't have to buy the license for the Software 6000.
No, I mean, I've already got high availability clustered SQL servers. Do I require your embedded copy?
We got a lot of talking to do offline. All right, guys, if there's nothing else, this afternoon what we're going to talk about is we're going to get kind of a deeper dive into the hardware for MXC. We're going to go over the feature license stuff. We're going to go over software 6000. You get to dig into, that's the real meat behind the system. And we're also going to go over a bid spec, which is kind of interesting. I always feel like it's interesting to have a look at how, you know, how a consultant might write a spec for a specific city council or a county or something. So we can have a look. So hopefully you've been paying attention to part numbers. If not, write notes as we go on, move forward this afternoon, because we're going to create a parts list from a bid spec. What else was there?
For reps, by the way, the PowerPoint presentation that you've seen this morning and PowerPoint for this afternoon, those will be available to you to reference as well as to use. If you're interested in seeing the camera, we don't have the capability because of limited outputs on our switcher over here, but if you want to see more of how the camera system is functioning, we can show you the One Beyond software over here. We've got a few minutes before we do a lunch break, but we've also got this, where Vanessa's at. If anybody wants to see or play with that Mimic, feel free to chat with her. We've also got 2 demo tables outside. Each demo table, one is an MXCW with a full functioning system that you're more than welcome to play with, and an MXC system as well that has a basic meeting set up on it to view the software. So plenty of stuff. If anybody has any questions, let us know, and otherwise we'll take a.
I got one quick thing. I just thought I might as well say it. There is no One Beyond's not part of Shure. Shure's not part of One Beyond. We can work with lots of different camera tracking systems. It just so happens that One Beyond makes our software easier to operate with Shure stuff. We use MXA 910 ceiling microphones a lot for camera tracking. One Beyond makes it almost plug and play for 910s. So while there are lots of options out there and we want to work with all of them, we just carry this one around because it's easy for us to set up. Kind of. We're not really video guys. All right, time to catch up on emails and voicemails. Thanks, guys. Just for the feed.
Yeah, I don't know who this is, but it's okay.
Hey, you stay. And there was no going.
So the wire gas is not. They're soft.
this is where we've got camera 3. So camera 3 gives us this back shot, which is this rear camera. What we can do is say,
I was half paying attention, that's how I wanted to make sure. I'm sure you did all of that.
They told me like. Oh yeah. So
And usually when you go through like
I'll do it next Thursday. These are grayed out because we're in the meetings. I saw for 6,000.
I think Dave Delaney too.
So what I do language control.
No, I don't think we need to. I think that's I think it's just that if you can't do it,
that's what it's for. We had some road units today. Those correlate to these first. Yeah, these are fun. We were talking about the other primary planner last week. So we had this all the stuff set up. They were talking about that's going to be in the U.S. market. It's primary cameras for those. Our market like and then our physical space. Oh wow! So even in a small meeting room, they would have some system like this. But what you notice, and I found that if you go side to a meeting and then go live, it goes. If you have them side by side, and that's usually free to capture. Now, if the mayor wasn't the primary camera, turn it off. A third way through. There's like a hierarchy. What happened? What happened in the meeting? You can obviously how much more productive you can be with these wireless things. So easy setup. You know, it doesn't take this whole time to prep the meeting, but just to add that voice up to the room. That's what it does. Yeah, I was thinking there's an application where I want to see what the conference room is. And I go there, I was thinking something like this, just for the voice. It's just table shot. It's the rest of the tabletop speakers. And then there's so much other things you can do, but just for the simplistic application of not having a whole speaker on the wall and stands, it goes on the table to chat, and then those different options you can do. The ability to set it far back if you're looking at plans and use this or use the shotgun. That's cool. What you do there. Yeah, it's just training our customers to realize that. So this isn't an overhead camera, it's really a wide spectrum. Absolutely. If it's important enough to have your meeting, why not make it fire that? You know, once he's over, so you with a rental company? So we're the Florida rep. Okay. So we're the because the CCU knows when a mic goes live. The CCU knows here's a meeting. They're doing one of these. Plus the speed. There's one in New York. There's one in Colorado. It is. Frustrating system. Hey, this mic's on. Okay, go to this preset. Literally, there's no. We're using audio triangulation. This is literally triggering preset. If this mic is on, we've got to save to this preset. It's very straightforward.
Is this part of the one beyond thing? This application here?
That application is built in the user's space.
So it's built for your system or?
Yeah. So the side that they've built for our system is the backside integration of the module. The module that talks to our product is what they've built.
just like the use the track here in this area. How do you talk to that one low with low one on the front table fires? They've got that communication worked out. This was right to but it sends out data, so this load's open, this load is now open. It's really the communication side that they worked out that makes it super on the product. Any manufacturer, because it's an open TCP/IP string, basically any camera control manufacturer that you want to use a system. What you can use the API, the advanced, you talked about with the software, if you are an API or wish to have control of it, they'll buy other software to do that. Okay, so verbatim to get the full API. It's on the video. It's recorded. I think that's what opens up the API. So you add that to it, and you've got but from a basic standpoint, it's like you just have to know, hey, this might something. Yeah. So this is the yeah, so that is all built in. Yes, it's USB micro wire cable. This is a micro cable. This one's taken to iOS. They just have Lightning, and then it also does the USB-C. It's not like we're part of K3. Okay. Yeah. So it's just a bundle package of the upgraded microphones. So it's a multi-directional microphone. Product. It comes with everything you see going with it. Yeah. So it's the phone holder, microphone, the shoe mount, tripod. It's a price point. So we have an app that you do the tuning basically of the microphone. So all you do is launch our votive app. But yeah, they just, and what it does is set up output on it, so you can adjust the monitor. So we had this live mic for what you hear from my gain. Adjust the flow pattern of the microphone. You can adjust it this way, or you can do it circuit bi-directional. It's also got a limiter, compressor, and EQ. So you use this to tune the microphone to the settings you want, and then you basically take over your microphone. So you can use the camera app if you want, and it becomes the microcam for that. Or you can use Facebook Live or Instagram or whatever application you want to do for the recording. This just becomes your directional microphone rather than using the Omni microphone. Which part? Yes. Okay. But they're yeah. So you got it as a good now. Does that hang out? So yeah, that's all. Okay. So you said that yeah, and it's a shoe mount. It's a shoe mount, so you could literally put it on top of your USB camera. So this was all really shot. And this goes off too, so if you want it on a regular tripod, or your phone, on a bigger tripod, something like that, it's just yeah, I'm not sure. So it's MV88 plus. Yeah, they call it the video, but yeah, something like that. Truthfully, this is really detailed. So yeah, essentially, it's just a new product. They like talking about a lot more heavy stuff, which makes sense. But I'm seeing a lot of this here in all my churches, or like Chris was saying about guys that are doing live. This is what that's where it's right now. Inexpensive first step to upgrading your live feed. If you're already going to be doing it as a this is a very light way of throw it up on the desk right next to the audio console, hit record, but instead of having a whole other system of reducer pipeline, all that breaks down. One-stop shop. It's about $100 different cost-wise. MV88 only has a lightning technology. So that lightning connector is built into the microphone, so you don't have any, and you don't have any faulty platforms.
I really like that. The windscreen.
Oh, sure, it's the same windscreen. Yeah, but you can buy that, that's just.
Hey guys. I don't want to buy it. That's cool though.
Yeah, the windscreen is just the,
that's about, yeah, it's definitely cars. It works inside.
Yeah, but outside,
Yeah, outside you need a bigger one.
And then we've got people that are talking about, using this, like with the stabilizers. If you would add that on the stabilizer.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool. Yeah, she's always literally.
Gotta show you this, we're the reps in Florida.
Okay.
You guys can get this on stuff like that. This is the closest training. So we jumped on this stuff. Awesome. Absolutely. So, oh, you're very welcome. You're with okay. Excellent. Okay. Absolutely. Let me grab one real quick. JB. Michael. JB. Huh? Who was the guy? You told me about? Oh, yeah, JB. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't want to refer to that or what the here, sir. Yeah, well, it's the new, I got the new. You got a new logo? It's got the new logo. Yeah, yeah. You live in Chicago? No, I live in Franklin, Tennessee. I cover Southeast. Yes, I know. We were in Chicago for about 10 days. And it was a little cold. Yeah, I finally outrun my target that I've had for 20 years out there. Yeah, that was brutal. By the last day, it was like 37 degrees, and I take my coat off. It's awesome. Where's the show? I know. Is that where you live?
No, I live in Connecticut.
Oh,
which is equally as cold. Yeah.
Well, at least you're not in Chicago.
It's nice in the summer when I.
Oh,
The 3 months we have.
Who will you be there with?
I'm sorry?
Who will you be representing?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, great. Maybe I'll see you there.
Maybe, yeah.
Have you done the show before?
No, actually I haven't. I've done many things, but never enterprise before, so. Good experience.
What booth you exhibit?
I don't even know where I'm sure booth somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know the number.
Well, we're 1442.
1442, okay. Yeah, that's not bad for sure.
Thanks.
Thank you. I have a card too for you.
Great. Thanks. Because November was the latest motive one. They put out a new motive. but it doesn't have working audio. And it has all the old logos, so everything we do, we just go in and replace the manuals, we just still have all the old logo videos. So.
Hopefully they're working on
Well, yeah, they said they hope to happen in the next month.
Really? This is the back of the car?
Well, you could.
Yeah.
Do you have a programmer? We don't. I can tell you we don't have $30. Okay.
Yeah, Amazon.
Where are these cards come from?
Well, we will have a SKU offered to you. A-Coast, ACLS is a couple different models, right?
And they need to be specific.
So it's a dealership card because of the
Gotcha. We'll buy them. We can get those readers, but we need to be able to remind the programmers. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's the cards. Let's get the right cards. But for demo purposes, we only need a handful of them.
Yeah.
But then you just have that information.
Yeah, so we've got every MXC kit. Well, your sound.
We're probably going to
So you already program.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Find out where you're going. Programs that are
MXCW, I think, would be better. Would be easier to have the reader with the kit. That way it can be done. I think it's got some trigger. That way you know that's less software 6000 or any extra software. But I'm saying when you're going to use MXC anyway, you're probably going to be using software 6000. So
it's really basic, but it's not
I just got to sell my system. That's my problem. I always got to sell my first system. I won't sell it. I will sell MXCW to production more than MXC.
all those city county governments down there.
That's just.
What about
Sasquatch?
What about those applications? Like previous life,
Yeah,
like there's.
I'm all production.
Okay.
I'm not integrated.
So you're going to sell.
I'll sell MXCW, but yeah. Yeah. It's just getting the guys to come into it big enough, right? You get some Sasquatch?
Marinade, that's tender vittles in there, that's Sasquatch vittles.
I don't understand how things
Just not inspired.
We got some grilled Sasquatch. I'm gonna throw this stuff right over here.